Good morning. You are watching KBC Channel 1 and are in time for live proceedings from the National Assembly. It is Wednesday, 11th day of April. The year is 2018. And in a short while, we shall be linking up with members of the National Assembly as they engage in matters legislation. The Wednesday morning sitting traditionally dedicated to private members' bills and motions. And as such, we have 4 motions lined up for debate this morning. But before that, a preview of what happened yesterday. We had members passing the second reading of the Computer and Cybercrimes Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of the year 2017, that is now headed to the Committee of the Whole House for amendments. It is one that proposes to provide a framework to prevent and control the threat of cybercrime, and that is offenses against computer systems and offenses committed by means of computer systems. And this is in acknowledging the fact that the Kenya Vision 2030 recognizes information communication and technology as one of the key drivers of social economic development in the country, and as such it is an enabler in achieving a middle income country status. And so this particular bill is intended to ensure and protect the digital environment, the cyberspace, and just to make sure that everyone who is on the internet is safe and their interests are taken care of. Members also did begin discussions surrounding the Irrigation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of the year 2017. And this one seeks to promote and regulate development and management of irrigation in Kenya. It sets out powers of the national government in regulation of this practice of irrigation, providing for establishment of the National Irrigation Development Authority as the successor of the National Irrigation Board, setting out its powers and functions, establishing not only of the board, but also appointment of its chief executive officer and other staff that will be required to ensure that it runs properly. This morning, 4 motions are lined up for discussion. The first one, a motion by Nyandarua County Woman Representative, Honorable Faith Wairimo Gitau. And she's looking at the fast tracking of implementation of the National Employment Authority Act that requires establishment and maintenance of an integrated and up-to-date database of all persons seeking employment in the country. She bases her argument on the fact that the average youth population in the country is 35% of the total population, and that majority of this population is in the job market entry level. And of course, this particular motion anchored on Article 55 of the Constitution of Kenya that obligates the state to take measures and ensure that the youth access employment. And of course, she goes further to even state some of the issues that derail this process that should occur naturally once someone acquires the relevant skills to build on the human capital resource. And this is tax compliance certificate from the Kenya Revenue Authority, a certificate of good conduct, a higher education loan clearance certificate, ethics and anti-corruption commission clearance, credit reference certificate, and noting that the cost of acquiring these documents is 4,500 shillings, which is really expensive for the average job seeker. Other motions by Laikipia County Woman Representative, Honorable Catherine Warogoro, Kamakwini counterpart Honorable Rose Museo, and as well as Gilgil Member of Parliament Honorable Martha Wangari, all lined up this Wednesday morning. in this live broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation.
And grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interest you have committed to our charge. Amen. Order, members. We are just short of the required quorum, and therefore I'll order the bell be rung for 10 minutes.
It's 34 minutes past the hour. If you are joining us, you are in time for live proceedings. 4 of those motions lined up. One of them seeks to have the charges waived for youth seeking employment in the country. Also seeks establishment of an employment database. It is sponsored by Nyandarua County Women Representative Honorable Faith Wairimo Gitau. And according to the Kenya Integrated Household Budget Survey 2015-2016, a poll done by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Kenya's workforce reached 20.5 million people, representing 63.2% of the total population, aged 5 years and above, and the females being majority. This is based on the 2009 census. The labor force was expected to reach 24.5 million in 2015 and increase to 28.5 million by 2020. And of note is that majority of this labor force are young people. And so the Honorable Gitau, in her motion, seeks to have the state take appropriate measures to ensure that this particular group access employment. The second motion of the day, declaration of cancer as a national disaster and establishment of a cancer fund. A motion sponsored by Laikipia County Woman Representative, Honorable Catherine Warogoro. A motion anchored on the fact that 30% of cancers, according to her motion, are curable if detected early, are treatable, and there is also prolonged survival status for patients. And therefore, there is need to make concerted efforts towards ensuring that cancer management or the treatment of cancer patients in the country is taken as an issue of national concern. Makueni County Woman Representative, Honorable Rose Museo, will be moving a motion calling on the government to establish programs and interventions to encourage uptake of counseling services among individuals. And as indicated by the Sergeant at Arms there on your screen, we do have a quorum this morning, and so the proceedings can begin.
Order, members. Order. Order. Those members who are walking in, can you please take your seats? We now have the required quorum, and therefore we'll begin business. Proceed.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable Theuri, the member for Umoina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Embakasi West constituency, draw the attention of the House to the following. That the residents of Embakasi West constituency highly appreciate the numerous economic, environmental, and Eastlands with at least 100,000 vehicles uses the roads on daily basis. That the Outer Ring Road project is expected to have positive effects on traffic, real estate, trade, and general economy of the eastern part of Nairobi. That the said road has reduced travel time from Mombasa Road to Thika Road from 3 hours to just about 10 minutes, which is relief to commuters who have to sit in traffic for hours. That Outer Ring Road design gives an outline that the road would encompass 8 lanes, a median lane for the proposed Nairobi Rapid Transit System, 4 passenger transfer stations, 10-foot bridges, 6 underpasses, and 2 interchanges. Despite these numerous benefits, a number of innocent Kenyans have lost their lives and injured through road accident along this road, robbing many households of their breadwinners and leaving untold suffering on the main and their families. A majority of the road accidents, victim and pedestrian, and especially school-going children who have involved in the road accident due to lack of footbridges, underpasses, and marked pedestrian crossing for the use by the pedestrian. That efforts to resolve this matter with relevant government agencies have been futile, and the matter presented to this petition is not pending before any tribunal, court, or law or independent body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing, 1, allocate appropriate funds for the construction of adequate footbridges, underpasses, and the major black spots, especially in Umoja, Mtindwa area, Donholm area, and Taj Mahal area, and establishment of bus stops along the Outer Ring Road. Ensure that the petitioner's plight is addressed and make any other direction that is deemed fit in the circumstance of the matter. Thank you.
Very well. And for members' knowledge, that is one of the few members in the cities who live in his constituency. I am informed that he lives actually in Umoja, Inako area. So he will be a real beneficiary of this if it were to go through. So I will give a few members to probably comment on this, maybe 2 or 3, leader of majority.
Speaker, this is a very good petition. Unlike many I've been hearing the last 2 weeks, and I'm sure with the leader of minority, we are wondering. But this is a very good petition. And the essence of that committee of transport is just to make sure that, yes, Outer Ring Road has really transformed that area, Mr. Speaker. The way Thika Superhighway has transformed those of us who are traveling from Nairobi to that part of the country. But again, innocent Kenyans lose their life every day. Some because they have no other choice. You know, there are no bridges, there are no other road safeguards. But there are some also, Mr. Speaker, who in the evenings, when they have 2, 3 bottles, then they cannot tell the difference between the normal Outer Ring Road they're used to and the superhighway now we have. So I think if Honorable Proceedings and the members of Transport Committee are, I think not only Outer Ring Road, all the major superhighways, we should allocate certain amount of resources to support those key Kura, Kenha, in their major construction. The Speaker, as you have said, Honorable Thayuri is having a second term. And you know, when he only wears a suit when he's in the chamber. This man, when he leaves this compound, he dresses in another different attire. And one day, when the president was launching that road in 2015, so Mr. Speaker,
who is that?
I'm about to finish.
Honorable Chachu, what is out of order, Honorable Chachu?
Sir, my point of view on the issue of relevance. How is relevance as a majority leader? Of course, he has that esteemed office and he can speak whenever he wants on this floor, talking about how the honorable member dresses. What business does he have on how the honorable dresses?
Members, including yourself, are free to observe.
Yes. Primary school, there's no dispensary. That has been done by these contractors, Mr. Speaker. So as much as they enjoy our monies, Mr. Speaker, these contractors must be charged to build schools and even dispensaries and roadside. If you go to these developed worlds, Mr. Speaker, by roadsides you find some dispensaries, you find telephone booths, you find emergency centers, but our roads were even toilets, Mr. Speaker. But you are finding they are building roads and leaving even funny materials on the roadsides, and they are paid even in advance. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Transport must now rise up to the expectation of this House that value for money is given, Mr. Speaker. We cannot keep on paying foreign companies here and they do not matter.
Very well. That one, of course, is referred to all the relevant committees. And if the committees can do it within 7 days, the better, so that we can be able to move on with that. And by the way, I also want to place that petition before the relevant committee, the previous one by Honorable Thayuri. And I see the chair of that particular committee, Honorable Losiakau. Please, can we hear something from you in terms of...
Yeah, thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Of course, the name that is known here is Kosing. So when you say Losiakau, many people might not know, but that is my name. That is my cow's name. But, Mr. Speaker,
I want to say that's your girl's name? Or your
cows. Ngombe, okay. In quotes, Mr. Speaker, so that I'm not told you're speaking in Kiswahili. But, Speaker, I want to confirm to Honorable Thayuri, who is my very good friend, that this petition now is with us. And I also want to invite him to come and participate. It is true, Mr. Speaker, that most accidents on our roads are actually caused, and the fatalities are actually pedestrians, Mr. Speaker. And all of us will combine our efforts to be able to help them. I agree with that. Okay. Of course, we have also the report. All right. But, Mr. Speaker, one problem that might also arise is, even if we do those underpasses or, or overpasses for even pedestrians, we also want to urge our people, through our honorable members, that when we do them, let them also use, Mr. Speaker. Because if you use some of these roads, when there's a bridge, even our own people don't use the bridge. They just cross the way they want. So okay. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that we combine efforts, and I will invite Honorable Thayuri to give us also some of these specific areas, Mr. Speaker.
That is fine.
I support it, and I welcome it.
Most of what you are saying now, you will say it in the committee,
yes,
which you lead yourself. And in terms of having your new name, many members have very, very, very new names here. Of course, I'm sure members don't know who Honorable Kang'ethe is. Kang'ethe is the member for, that must be Jude Jomo, Of course, Kingola, many members would not know, that is the member for Mavoko. So we will be getting these names smoked out so that members can be known in all their names, including Kitonga, who is the member, not for Tharaka. That Kitonga is a member for Makueni. Yes. Okay, let's proceed, please. Let's proceed. We also have the chairperson energy on this one.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, April 11th, 2018. Report on the Departmental Committee on Energy on its consideration of the Energy Bill 2017. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements. Order number 8, motion, waiver of charges and establishment of employment database.
Yes, just a minute. All right, we have slightly above an hour, actually 1 hour, 3 minutes remaining. So therefore, members who will be contributing, kindly be brief so that as many members as possible can contribute. And let me start with the member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this to meet the demands from the potential employers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you talk of getting a job and then you find that whoever is qualified needs 5 years experience, I wonder if you don't get that employment, world. And I expect the minister is concerned, and even the Public Service Commission, to have the database of all the people who have left the school, who are qualified and who need jobs, and they can transmit this information to potential employers. They will come maybe with a transport and something maybe for a day or two, and you find that the offices where you are going to seek this information or where you want to get this data, which is required of you to take to the employer, Mr. Speaker, you will have to cough some money in one way or the other. This becomes very clumsy until you find that job seekers, they despair, they can't be. Not to start asking for money from a job seeker even before they start earning that money. At the end of the day, they will start borrowing that money, or they will start, they will go to their leaders, and at the end of the day, you find somebody will despair and stop even bothering about that job. Mr. Speaker,
a database that is able to be accountable and that is able to be managed properly. Mr. Speaker, you'll find out that in the same World Bank report, it states that out of 800,000 job seekers, those who manage to get him or her to serve this country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this motion is well structured and should address the issue of the youth and those who are unemployed, especially in Kenya, and those that are between the age of 18 to 35 years. Mr. Speaker, the issue of documentation, why should you ask a Kenyan who has got an ID to produce documents, yet that Kenyan can prove very well that he's a Kenyan? The issue of documentation, Mr. Speaker, is taking us back to the pre-colonial period, where Kenyans were asked to produce ID wherever they would go, even in government offices. Therefore, Mr. Speaker,
the issue of anti-corruption clearance. Why should you ask someone to produce an SCC clearance when that person has never been employed? Where has he practiced the corruption? Mr. Speaker, the issue of credit reference. How can you ask an 18-year-old who has never been to any bank to ask for money to produce a credit clearance, Mr. Speaker?
Order, Honorable Sankok. What is it, Honorable Sankok? You are quite mobile this morning. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think it's in order for the government to come up with a database that is managed in a proper way.
Order. And even before you sit down, Honorable Sankok, you have already pressed what is out of order.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. From the recent past, we have seen members
What is out of order?
joining my club.
Which club?
You have just seen Honorable Halima Mucheke walking with crutches around here. You know, at times they will give me a lot of competition. You have seen that she have started receiving the benefit that I normally receive. So I plead with members. Please don't belong to our club. Honorable Mucheka, Halima, please get well very soon. Get well very soon.
You are completely out of order, Honorable Sankok. You are completely out of order. I think what you've done is perfectly to wish Honorable Halima a quick recovery. The rest, and I don't know what this club of yours is. Unless you are talking about, of course, their organization. Proceed, Honorable Member for Butere.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask my brother, Honorable Sankok, to also realize that the issue that I'm talking about is very important. Not only the issue of you walking in crutches, but also this one is very important even to people with disabilities. And therefore, it was not good for you to interrupt, knowing very well that your issue does not concern the motion. Mr. Speaker, let me stop there, but I ask the government to set up the database very quickly so that we are able to address the matter. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Manzo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, unemployment is a serious matter in the country, and a lot of youths, just as many of ourselves in this house, found themselves in a similar situation as a lot of people who complete university, and it is a bit difficult at that particular moment to have a tax compliance certificate, because in the first place they have never earned, to have a certificate of good conduct, because somebody has just left school, although even a young person can still have a criminal record, and to have a higher education loans board clearance certificate, because you have not even begun paying the loan, because you have just left university, and also to ESCC clearance, because you have never worked, therefore chances of having participated in corruption are nil, and even credit reference bureau, because at that age, particularly, you may never have borrowed any bank or anybody any money. And even to raise the 4,500 shillings is a challenge for a lot of job seekers at that particular moment. In fact, most of them hardly have 100 shillings in their pocket as they look for a job. So I do agree with establishment of a database, because it is in that data you can easily refer this particular young person. And I had an opportunity to work in the Ministry of Youth as a Secretary for Youth and Sports. And I'm familiar with what a lot of young people go through. And the mover of this motion to waive charges and establish an employment database is very right, Mr. Speaker. I would really like to urge the government to support this and to urge members to support it too. Because that particular waiver means you have already been identified if there is a database, and you can be connected to where you come from or your constituency or your county, and therefore you are traceable. Even if you are newly employed and something goes wrong, there are enough people who can be able to show your whereabouts, because those are the fears for a person who is newly employed. And I think, Mr. Speaker, it is good to have this database. It had been established and it exists In the year 2002, when President Kibaki came to power, there was a very huge effort to make a youth database. But of course, people who are youths in the year 2002, of course, times have changed, and it means this particular database has to be maintained, and I urge members to do so. I thank you.
Honorable Chachu Ganya. It's not working there. Yes, come to the one. It's now working. It's now working, Honorable Ganya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for having been able to catch your eye. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to commend Honorable Faith Wairimu Gitau for this very timely, very relevant motion of national importance. Mr. Speaker, sir, unemployment is a major national concern. It's a major national these requirements actually are necessary. I don't think people have thought through it, and I don't see how somebody trying to seek an employment is in any way connected to somebody's creditworthiness. So, Speaker, sir, maybe once that individual is employed, will be able to sort out his credit issues. What does that have to do with him being denied an opportunity to even apply for a job just because he doesn't have those unnecessary documents? Mr. Speaker, sir, as soon as we pass this motion, and we have the database, it's not enough. Let's make use of that database. Mr. Speaker, sir, the institutions in this country, we even have Ministry for Youth and Ministry for Labor dealing with the issues of employment. Mr. Speaker, sir, we can work with our embassies all over the world and export our human resource. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have well-trained manpower in this country. You can go anywhere in the world today. You'll meet Kenyan doctors, you'll meet Kenyan nurses. Mr. Speaker, sir, you'll meet Kenyan engineers and Kenyans, working in all the fields. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we have an aggressive effort to export our manpower, to export the skills that we have, that we are not able to utilize in this country, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm very sure, Mr. Speaker, sir, we'll be able to create enough employment for our youths, and that will better their labor. Ministry of Youth Affairs and others are enabled, and other institutions and our embassies all over the world are given the necessary resources and necessary capacities in terms of human resource, Mr. Speaker, sir, to really market Kenyan professionals, Kenyans in those job markets all over the world. I am very sure we can address this crisis. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the motion very strongly, but Mr. Speaker, sir, I strongly also believe that more than having that database, let's see how we can make very good use of that database by linking with all the relevant ministries, our embassies, and also other countries where we can easily tap into their market. I strongly oppose this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, let's have the member for Alego Usonga. It's a man called Atandi Onunga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, Kenya has the highest unemployment rate in East Africa, currently standing at 22%, as compared to Uganda, which is at 4%, and Tanzania at 5%. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the population growth rate, again, Kenya is lower, Tanzania is higher, and Uganda also is higher. And so, Mr. Speaker, this clearly means that we have a constant size of population that is not getting opportunities of employment. And Mr. Speaker, while I support the motion, I think it's not just enough to have a database of unemployed youths. As a people, we need to, as a government, we need to dig further and look at how we can be able to create opportunities. And Mr. Speaker, creating a good, conducive environment for private sector, private companies to thrive and to create jobs is one of the areas that I think we need to look at as a government, as a people. But you know that in the recent past, a lot of private companies have exited Kenya because of corruption. But, Mr. Speaker, corruption in government has hindered new companies coming from outside to come and venture into this country so that our youth can be able to get opportunities. And I think once we create this database, as a government, we must realize and think deeper and look at ways in which we can create opportunities. If we have a database of 1 million youths who are jobless, and we are not thinking about where are the opportunities for them, I think we are really not helping. The other issue that I want to talk about, Mr. Speaker, is to do with some of these requirements for the youth to get opportunities, job opportunities. You are being asked to get CRB clearance. You know, when I was looking for this job, Mr. Speaker, I was asked for so many documents, and I had some debts. I had not cleared them, so I was wondering how and where I needed to be cleared of these debts before I could become a member of parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, some of these requirements are necessary. Higher Education Loans Board, you realize most youth, before they get opportunities, they get jobs, they cannot begin to pay the loans. So, in a nutshell, Mr. Speaker, we are asking so many things from the youth before they can get opportunities for jobs. And I would like to say that apart from just waiving the fees, we need to find a way in which we can do away with some of these requirements. Why do you want KRA clearance for somebody who has just graduated from the university? Where has he been earning? So I think I support the motion, but Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that as Parliament we identify opportunities and areas in which we can strengthen the private sector for our youth to be able to get opportunities, job opportunities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Abdallah Sheikh, member for Mandera East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this motion is very good. It resonates well with the many youths who are unemployed. And 35% of the total population of Kenya are comprised of the youth. And what this motion seeks is to waive the numerous and many fees that are being charged by the youth as they seek for employment. It's rather unfortunate that somebody is seeking for employment and is being asked to get documents which are also costing. What is most surprising is that the same youth who is unemployed is put in the same category and level as somebody who is seeking higher offices. Cabinet secretaries, permanent secretaries, CEOs are required to have the same documents at the same price as the unemployed youth. So what it means is that we understand, yes, but why will a youth who doesn't have this kind of amounts of money to be charged for him to seek employment?
Honorable member, Honorable Cecily Barire, you have an intervention. Okay. Proceed.
Thank you. When youths seek employment, they are asked to present these documents. And it's not a guarantee they will also get the same jobs. And so what this motion entails to achieve is to provide affirmative action for the many youths in this country. This will go a long way in easing the already onerous and difficult path of seeking for employment for the youths in this country. As members of parliament, we are saddled with a number of requests on a daily basis for youths trying to seek employment. They have these documents, they have the clearance certificates, and yet they can't get employment. So why saddle them with two difficult issues? Look for the documents, they pay for it, they have it, and they can't find employment. So at least this will be sort of taking the burden from them by ensuring that these documents are not a requirement for youth seeking first-time employment. We understand the government gets a lot of money or revenue from this kind of documentations. You can still raise the same from people who are already employed, higher cadre of Kenyans. So if the government thinks that the revenue will be short in terms of what they need to collect from the youths, they can as well charge from the higher cadre. Say, for example, if the rate is 1,000 and you are looking for a position of a CS or a PS or a CEO, you pay 3 times. That means you are catering for the amount that the youth will have paid. That way, the government will not also lose the same revenue. But as it concerns the youth, it's very important. The other aspect is about the database for youth employment. Youths leave colleges, universities, but we do not have real-time database to know who is employed and who's out there still looking for employment. So I think this matter of database is very critical, and this way, as leaders, we'll be able to hold to account the government to find out who has been employed and from where, and from which county or constituency. And this also go down well with the fact that we need to have balance in terms of employment all over the country. So I support this motion. It's very important, and I want to advise the government that please continue providing services to the youth. Youths are too many in this country, and they are unemployed. So don't give them the burden of also seeking for other documentations that are costly. Thank you very much.
Very well. Shall we have Honorable Mukwana Kamala, member for Rurambi? Yes, shall we give him the mic? Yes,
Okay,
there you go.
I have it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I rise up to support this motion on waiver of charges and establishment of employment database. Mr. Speaker, our youth in this country, they form a huge part of our population of the country, and most of them are not employed, Mr. Speaker. And we realize that employment is a challenge. Opportunities for employment have shrunk, and most of our youth are out there looking for each and every available opportunity. But Mr. Speaker, we have worked in the recent past whereby there are so many requirements for our young people to get an opportunity for an interview, just an interview or an opportunity to place in your names for vetting. And that is not even a guarantee that you will get the position you are looking for. Most of our youth, and the majority of them, don't have any money with them. And so they will work very hard to raise money, to get these documents, and some of these documents take too long of a time. Something like a certificate of good conduct, it will take forever sometimes to get it. And some of them have to walk. Like my constituency, Lurambi constituency in Kakamega town, some of the youth have to walk to come to Huduma Center to acquire these documents. The queues are very long. They don't have the money to pay. They have to work, maybe do manual work, or sometimes come to us leaders to raise that money. And I think it is, this is just overdue. This was supposed to be done as quickly. Have not committed any economic crimes where they need the clearance of ESCC and such bodies. So to me, it is not youth-friendly to make them
and made clearly. To my right, topmost Honorable Wambogo Ngujiri, member for Nyeri Town.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion. And specifically, I have been advised that the part that says 35% of the total population of the country, because in my understanding, the youth population is actually close to 75%, people who are 35 years and below. And my contribution to this motion would be that maybe what we need to actually do is to determine that anybody who is below 35 years of age does not need to prove in campus. So my intervention and my proposal to this motion would be, let's pass a law that says that for anybody who is 35 years and below, what you need to prove is that you're not a criminal. So you can take your certificate of good conduct, for example, because that's a basic requirement. But in regard to these other certificates for higher education loans clearance, tax compliance loans, tax compliance certificate, those I would suggest that, Mr. Speaker, we as a country make the decision that we will not be asking our young people to provide those kind of documents. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because in Nyeri, I have one of the things that my office has done is created a data pool for all the people, all the young people in my constituency who are looking for jobs. And one of the biggest challenges that we keep facing is that issue, that request, that every time somebody has an opportunity to go for an interview, just the mere fact that they have to pay close to 5,000 shillings, because it's 4,500 shillings for the documents. And the person still has to look good, has to look for a good suit, has to prepare themselves. So this person, just to go and look for a job, requires 5,000 shillings. And then they don't actually get the job. So, Mr. Speaker, and I know this, I speak on behalf of a lot of my colleagues, we are trying to help these young people to access jobs. One of the things that the Big Four agenda the President has introduced is going to do is to try and create close to 1 million jobs, 1.29 million jobs to be exact. A lot of the people who will be looking for these jobs are the young people who are unemployed in this country. Mr. Speaker, any money that we might lose, one of my colleagues said that maybe we are scared that we are going to lose revenue from these payments, but any money that we will lose in revenue in charges for these documents is going to be recovered in taxes. Pay as you earn taxes, immediately these people get jobs. So, Mr. Speaker, I first and foremost want to congratulate Honorable Faith Gitao for bringing this motion. I want to strongly encourage all the members here to look at this as something that is going to benefit us at local level, because it's going to remove the cost. Sometimes you are forced as a member of parliament to actually go to your pocket to help somebody go for an interview or to help somebody access documents. Because remember, the people we are trying to help to get jobs are people who are coming from poor backgrounds, so that they can actually also go and become partakers and contributors to the economy of this country. Mr. Speaker, I strongly support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Before I give Honorable Martin Owino, member for Diwa, I see the Deputy Majority Whip would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion, and let me first congratulate the mover of this motion, the Honorable Faith Wairimu Gitau, the MP for Nyandarua County, and really say that it's a motion whose time has come, and say that it is indeed very thoughtful and positive of her to think about not just the youth of her county, but the youth of this entire nation. Let me also say, yes, it is true, they say that the youth population is about over 70% of those below 35, but it's important for us to know that the actual definition of a youth, according to the laws of Kenya, is one between 18 and 35 years. So actually 35% of this age bracket is factual. Mr. Speaker, the level of unemployment, the unemployment rate in this country, if you look at the statistics as provided by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, puts it at 12.1%, which may sound very low and unrealistic, but it is in relation to the available labor force in the country. And Mr. Speaker, we are aware that we are channeling a huge number of young people every year who graduate at the universities, who graduate at tertiary institutions, who graduate at polytechnics every year. And these people need jobs. And all of us will agree that the biggest role of a member of parliament, which shouldn't be, but is obviously the case, is your office is like an employment agency. You're like an employment agency for your youth in your constituency. And many times when you sit in your office to meet your constituents, at least a half of the people you meet will be young people seeking for jobs. And therefore, any effort to make it easier for these young people to get the jobs should be embraced by this House, Mr. Speaker. And that is why this motion is important and of great importance to the young people as they try to seek for jobs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, difficult for the young people who have no money to acquire. And yet we know that the government has tried to bring services closer to the people through the creation of Huduma services and Huduma centers. But again, the requirement for these young people to pay to seek for the other certificates as required, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one would wonder, if a young person has never worked, why do you need an EACC certificate, clearance certificate? Why do you need a credit reference certificate, Mr. Speaker? I think these are requirements.
But before you speak, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the foreign schools at the public gallery. Greenville Primary School from Keses constituency, Uasin Gishu County. Kenya Navy Primary School from Likoni constituency, Mombasa County. We also have Langata Junior Primary School from Langata constituency, Nairobi County. And finally, the Goshen School, Kuria West constituency, Migori County. And they are welcome. Honorable Martin Owino.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this time, and I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, let me talk on behalf of my constituency first. We have over 67% unemployment of young people in that constituency. Most of them are very poor and have no resources even to access the documentation we are talking about. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, that it is the responsibility of the state, the government, to provide and identify her citizens. So the waiver proposal is very much in order. The Speaker, I also want to say that establishment of the database should not only be at a national level, but should be decentralized to the wards as well as the constituencies and the counties. Mr. Speaker, when we were in high school, the professions that we wanted to be...
Honorable Gikaria,
what is required? Lastly, Mr. Speaker, documentations can be required, yes, but let them be required in stages. For example, when you are going for interview, that should be stage 1. And when you are given a job offer, that should be stage 2. So you cannot look for all documentations at the interview level and you are not even sure of getting a job. Some requirement does not make sense. For example, certificate of good conduct. This can be gotten in few minutes if you have money. And in fact, most of them do not reflect what a person really is. So it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. So with those remarks, Speaker, I want to support this motion and let job counseling centers go along with it to make it easier for people to access.
What is out of order, Honorable Macau, member for Mavoko? What's your point of order? Can you give him? Yes, please. You can use the next.
Hello. Thank you. The Speaker, it seems like all members are in agreement. I'm begging that you move that you allocate 3 minutes per speaker, so that we do away with this motion, Mr. Speaker.
Order member, well, that's a proposal, and probably you want to persuade the members, but there is a prevailing decision by the House on how much time should be allocated to the members, and that should be 10 minutes per member. But you could persuade your members, but that will not be binding.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand guided, so can I persuade them we be allocated 5 minutes per speaker?
Well, order member, that they have had, and probably we'll see whether the next member will give to speak has been persuaded by your persuasion.
Thank you,
has
Speaker.
been moved by your persuasion. But probably that's a fair, it's a fair appeal on your part to the members.
Thank you, Speaker.
And let's see, member for Sirisia.
Mr.
Honorable member. Mr. Speaker, employment for youth in this country, Mr. Speaker, has been a very big problem. And the country, Mr. Speaker, as leadership, right from us as members of parliament, Mr. Speaker, we need to look for a way that everything should be free for our youth, Mr. Speaker, because we come from different families, although many come from poor families, yes, but they should also get used to pay, because it is only one thing that the government is requiring, for them to pay. It is the only one certificate from the police that is required. But others are just free, like and corruption, there's no payment. The KRA, there's no payment. Many of it's only good conduct where youth are supposed to pay, Mr. Speaker, and they have been paying. There's no youth who has complained that he cannot raise 1,500 to pay for that certificate, Mr. Speaker. So these families we are talking about come from us, Mr. Speaker, and we know that slowly they can pay for this certificate, Mr. Speaker. So I stand to support the motion. It is very good, and I encourage our youth also to struggle for the help. That one you can sit even for 10, 15 years until you get the job. It's not a must that you pay when you are not employed. So, Mr. Speaker, even members should consider that this country requires revenue. So I support the motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Yes, top on the left, to my left now is Honorable Mwadime Adru, member for Mwatate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the to talk before me. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker,
please remember you have time allocation.
Sorry? But the machines, I think they have a problem.
Honorable member.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reference Bureau. In fact, me as a banker, this credit reference bureau was not meant for such. It was meant for people who actually were moving around, taking money from other banks so that you can refer. But it was not meant for jobs for youth. Therefore, giving them another burden, actually it doesn't augur well. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, they have said much on the same. Therefore, I didn't talk much, but I support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Top on the list on my right
was dubbed KYUP, Kenya Youth Employment Opportunities Project. And in Nakuru County, which was to be a pilot county, when these applications were called, there was a clear requirement that they must be jobless. They must be between 18 and 29 years. Out of the youth that applied it that day, you spend the fare, forget this 4,500, you even spend more in terms of transport to Nakuru, and you end up not having that clearance, Mr. Speaker. We cannot talk that we are going to achieve the sustainable development goals, equal opportunities, sustainable life, if we don't have our youth being taken care of, Mr. Speaker. This motion was brought in the 11th Parliament. And my problem with motions, Mr. Speaker, is that they are usually just swept under the carpet because the implementation is usually just, I can do it if I like, I can do it if I don't like. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the mover of this motion to look at the HELP Act, look at the laws that you can tighten so that it does not end being a motion. And to the Committee of Implementation, if we are going to speak in vain as a House, because it has happened before, then it beats the logic of the role of Parliament in doing their duties, Mr. Speaker. Let the Committee of Implementation ensure that it is adhered to. And because we have done it before, we had a presidential decree on the 30%. We did the 30% law in last Parliament, but still the monitoring, even if it's ongoing, at least it is in a law, it is an act. Let us get it to be implemented, because speaking to it, I know all of us have suffered. The enormous requests we get in our offices to get people jobs are crazy. So we know, and everyone has been beaten by this problem. So let us get to getting the solution. Let the Committee of Implementation take it up, and more importantly, the government, as we push their 4 agenda, the issue of housing, the issue of manufacturing, the issue of food security, let us ensure we create more opportunities for the youth. And this database, Mr. Speaker, has to be, we really must embrace technology. I shudder, and I'll move that motion later, when we see the issue of a simple birth certificate taking forever to process. We have 3 million kids who have not been registered because of a birth certificate. Why can't we have a system where when you have a birth certificate, Mr. Speaker, by the time you reach 18 years, it is automatic that you require an ID, you require a voter's card, you require a driving license. When you go to, it is not supposed to be rocket science. Let us have this technology being embraced by government, because it is not just by chance that they don't do it. These government institutions must take it very seriously, that when there's a crisis, that is where corruption thrives. Let us ensure that these issues are dealt with right from the registration of our children. That way we can talk 10 years, 15 years down the line, we don't have the same problem we're having now. But with those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Very well, members, I would like to remind us one of the motions that we passed, a procedural motion, that such an individual member's motion takes a maximum of 2 hours. Each member has 5 minutes, not actually 3, not 10, but 5 minutes. And I want to remind us that this particular motion had a balance of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and it started at 9:57. That means the motion time must end at 11 in the next 6 minutes. And I can tell there are a lot of interest, but look, there is that decision by the House. And so, inevitably, we have to call the mover to reply, but the mover usually, sometimes is persuaded to actually donate his or her time to colleagues, and that is left to her. The mover, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My chairman is really lifting his hand, and I want to donate 2 minutes to him.
Who is your chairman, Honorable? Oh, mention him by name. It must be Honorable Gikaria. Okay, you have the floor. 2 minutes.
First, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and my dear sister, Honorable Faith, Member of Parliament Nyandarua. Honorable Speaker, I take this opportunity to support the motion as indicated on the order paper. And it is very important, Honorable Speaker, that I want to take up from where Wangari, my dear sister, had left. And it is true. The employment for the youth that was on a pilot program in Nakuru, it is true we had 30,000, and we just required 8,000. And you can imagine, you can see the thirst of Kenyans and what they're, but I think, as again, Margaret Wangari has just said, it's important for the mover also to look at the policies and the regulations in various ministries and state departments to be able to put those things under either a policy or in the regulation where they require that these waivers should be indicated. That's too soon, my dear. But with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Give her the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll give 1 minute to the Chair of KEWOPA. Just 1 minute, please.
Who is the chair of KEWOPA? Honorable Faye. Honorable Girishi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this motion. Standing before you, I would like to bring into consideration that the fact that that we finish with these taxes and these charges.
Honorable Faith, now you have the time to reply. I'm afraid you can't donate anymore.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to reply to this important to come and get a certificate from CRB. They can get the certificate of the certificate from KRA, the certificate of to establish the database for all persons that cancer should be declared as a national disaster. Mr. Speaker, I managed to have a sitting with one Dr. Miriam Mutembi, who is a breast and cervical oncologist, and she works at the Aga Khan University Hospital. And this was her statistics, and this was the finding of the Aga Khan National Hospital, Mr. Speaker. The increasing epidemic with a number of cancer patients in Kenya, she says that the World Health Organization had predicted that by the year 2020, there will be at least 20 million new cancer cases, which should be concerned with the 3/4 of those who will be from the developing countries, Mr. Speaker. The leading cancer include women breast cancer, Mr. Speaker, which 34 women out of 100 women, Mr. Speaker, have breast cancer, Mr. Speaker. Men who tend to also be prone to prostate cancer, 17 out of 100 men in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, they have prostate cancer. Mr. Speaker, 70 to 80% of the cases, Mr. Speaker, are detected at a late stage, meaning that it's an advanced stage of 3rd to 4th stage, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have several factors, Mr. Speaker, that are backtracking our fight against cancer in this country. And these are probably some of the shortcomings which are in the system. And maybe we need to look at them as legislators so that we look forward for answers and solutions which we can get them maybe in the medium term and probably in the next 1 or 2 years, so that we may be able to offer Kenyans a solution and a practical solution to the problems that they are facing in fight against cancer. And number 1 is inadequate facilities, Mr. Speaker. May I bring to the attention of the House, Mr. Speaker, that we only have Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Referral Teaching Hospital, as the only 2 government facilities or public facilities which can attend our cancer patient, Mr. Speaker. And all referrals which are made from our 47 counties, Mr. Speaker, and a good number of our constituencies, they tend to all of them to converge at 2 referral hospitals, because most of our Kenyans cannot afford, Mr. Speaker, to go and be attended at private hospitals. We have the Nairobi Hospital, we have the Aga Khan Hospital, we have the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, like I stated, it's a public hospital, and these facilities are not enough to cater the high number of cancer cases which are coming up. And for those patients who are not able to access Nairobi Hospital, Aga Khan Hospital, and MP Shah, Mr. Speaker, they tend to die in the villages because, Mr. Speaker, they cannot be able to meet up and cater for the cost. And the excess cost, Mr. Speaker, which comes after NHIF card, Mr. Speaker, cannot cover certain costs, Mr. Speaker. A lot of Kenyan burden in regards to cancer is left to our private hospitals. And Mr. Speaker, you realize just recently we embarked on a campaign for the NHIF cards, Mr. Speaker. And in this case, I want to make these revelations to the floor of the House, that our NHIF cards cannot cover 100% of the cost which is met by the cancer patients in our country. And it would only cover up to around 42%. And Mr. Speaker, the rest of the burden is left to our Kenyans and poor Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, who are dying. And just in the concluded motion, you realize that majority of our Kenyans are poor and they do not even access formal employment. And those who are in formal employment, Mr. Speaker, most of them, they will not term as NHIF card as something they should look into seriously, Mr. Speaker. Human capacity is also another problem. Mr. Speaker, in the private sector, it is alleged that in Kenya we only have 23 oncologists, or doctors to be specific, who have the relevant training to attend our cancer patients, Mr. Speaker. And I want you to do against the distribution of our counties and the number of people we represent. Like in Laikipia, we have over 460,000 registered voters, Mr. Speaker. Distributing those voters with 23 oncologists against a number of 47 counties, Mr. Speaker, it is only practical and unimaginable that Kenyans cannot be treated, and they will have to book for appointments for over a period of 60 days before, Mr. Speaker, somebody can be lucky to visit or to meet services of a government doctor, and that is in this case an oncologist. Mr. Speaker, in July the year 2010, one governor, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And this was a shocking revelation which left majority of us as Kenyans perturbed by imagining one Governor Anyang' Nyong'o could be ailing. Senator Beth Mugo, she has come out as a crusader, and she's fighting against cancer. And among us, a good number of parliamentarians who could also be suffering from this cancer. But I would like to narrow my argument from one Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, because he came out so clear and he has been advocating, fighting against cancer and telling Kenyans to come out in large number because of sensitization and also early detection. After his treatment at the United States, he came out clear and stated to Kenyans that using technology which was discarded 20 years ago in fight against cancer was only subjecting poor Kenyans into punishment and corporal punishment, which are termed deadly and death. Professor Anyang' Nyong'o said, after coming face to face with the cruelty of cancer, Nyong'o, a cancer survivor, was worried about the chances of his survival, and for those who are privileged to him and who could not, and even those majority of Kenyans who could not afford the treatment abroad. He opted to go public and sensitize Kenyans on the need to go for screening, and once cancer is screened and detected as stage 1, he came out clear to tell Kenyans that it can be slowed down and it is curable. In his broad decision to go to public, stuck to Kenyans diagnosed with cancer, but who was less privileged and would queue for months in return of old-fashioned treatment and often unfunctioning radiology machines, and at a great cost, often would fear to cater the expense and high costs which are being charged at the private hospitals and also at the public hospitals. May I quote the words of Senator Beth Mugo, who said that our fear as Kenyans to go for early detection and screening is what will subject us to ridicule and will subject this country into ridicule of a country which has failed to take care of the healthcare and the welfare of its citizens, Mr. Speaker. And number two, these two high-profile Kenyans came out clearly to say that we require intensive procedures, which would require us as Kenyans to be in a position to tell in a very easy way, even from our marketplaces, from our working places, to be in a position to make sensitization early.
Honorable Aruguru, your time is up, but for you to just conclude that line of thought, very quickly, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the 3 minutes. I actually thought I have 30 minutes to move the motion. That's why I took my time. I stand advised.
You have 15 minutes, actually. The mover on an individual motion, as I said, you remember on the last motion, I indicated that. But you have 3 minutes. There is a line of thought that I think you will conclude in that 3 minutes.
15 minutes, is it?
Honourable member, you have 3 minutes to conclude.
Thank you. I'll try to be fast. Like I said, I thought I had 30 minutes and I wanted to utilize my time. I said we need early detection, and I said for patients who are in stage 3 and stage 4, we need palliative care, and this is cancer patients who have been termed as incurable cases. And in this case, I want to go straight to recommendations which I want to propose to this House, and I'm requesting the House to allow us to declare cancer as a national disaster so that the government can be able to establish a cancer fund. And the main areas of actions which I want to recommend to the House: 1 is prevention, early detection, and cancer screening. Number 2, cancer diagnosis, registration, surveillance, and establishment of a registry which is well elaborate so that it can capture our cancer cases, and we are able to work from a data that originates from the government records. And number 3 is the cancer treatment, the palliative care, and the survivorship, because it does not mean that you're in stage 3 or stage 4 of cancer, you are doomed to die tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, we require an elaborate coordination, partnership, and financing of cancer control. We require monitoring and evaluation and research in regards to cancer, standardization and regulation of pricing in medical professionals, fee and cost. And Mr. Speaker, I must mention this, that our Kenyans are subjected to overpricing, which I would quote as consumer exploitation, because the private sector tend to overcharge, and I must say this, they tend to increase prices from what some of these drugs are charged at the government hospitals. For instance, if NHIF card cover caters for chemotherapy and radiology, Mr. Speaker, you will notice it doesn't matter whether you are a first timer using that card. They will always tend to extend some extra fees and those costing, which will actually discourage majority of our Kenyans from desiring to visit the private hospital. And moving forward, Mr. Speaker, we require more referral hospitals, national referral hospitals like the Mombasa, which was brought the other day by the Jicho Pevu. We require more, and at least 10 or 12 national referral hospitals so that we can distribute the burden across these hospitals. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I must state that I would encourage members, probably led by the sessional chair and the leadership of the House, Justin Muturi, our Speaker. I can see our whip here, my good sister Cecily Barire. I would invite the Ministry of Health that they should bring us a camp here and allow us as members to be screened so that we check our status and get aware of where our status are. I think just as we went loud and explained about our status and encouraged the members of society.
Be dying, and the cases, the severity of the pain will continue to increase, and therefore you realize that that is not what we want for this country. Second, the infrastructure that is required for diagnosis is not available in this country. Apart from Kenyatta National Hospital, we do not have any other hospital that can really diagnose cancer and also treat it. So what we are looking at is a deliberate government effort to increase diagnostic infrastructure within the country. You realize that from the coast, someone has to travel over 500 kilometers to come to Kenyatta National Hospital for the one reason, to just get a diagnosis. Cancer screening centers in this country are hard to come by. And therefore, those who suspect that probably what I'm ailing from is cancer, or probably a lab thinks this person needs to get diagnosis, this person struggles and cannot get an opportunity to actually access a diagnostic center. Therefore, this country needs to make deliberate attempt. And one of the things that we think with declaration of cancer as a national disaster, it also brings in funding for diagnostic infrastructure. Now, our thinking is that at least every county or every sub-county hospital within this country should have a place where they can do cancer screening and diagnostic equipment is available. That way, we'll be able to help the people that we have that have cancer. Another important issue is awareness on cancer. The other issue that must be looked at, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the issue of cost. Today,
treatment for cancer and diagnostic for cancer is prohibitive in this country. You realize that if you want to go for treatment, you must have a lot of money to go to that place. If you must go for even screening, you must part with a lot of money. Many of the patients that come from poor backgrounds succumb to death. Why? Because they cannot afford to get treatment or be screened. So the cost of treatment is very prohibitive. Mr. Speaker, I can see the light is on, but I will ask, just like we allowed the mover of the motion, to also add me a little more time so that I can give out these issues as they are.
To this, but you beg to second. Can I say that?
Yes. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are having said the many things that I have said, I beg to second this motion and urge members, fellow members in this House, to pass this motion, and we urge the move of this motion to bring in the bill as soon as possible so that this cancer can be declared a national disaster and special funding be set aside to help poor Kenyans or fellow Kenyans that are suffering from this pandemic. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, I will propose a question, which is that aware that cancer causes more deaths than HIV, TB, and malaria combined. Further, aware that 30% of cancers are curable if detected early. 30% of cancers are treatable with prolonged survival if detected early. 30% of cancer patients can be provided with resources, support, and palliative care for cancer patients. This House urges the government to declare cancer as national disaster and establishment of cancer fund to cater for cancer treatments and care. Honorable members, I want to remind us again for what I indicated earlier, each member has maximum of 5 minutes. That is not to say that you must exhaust your 5 minutes. If you decide to exhaust, that's fine. But you can't speak for more than 5 minutes. I'll be guided by my screen here, how members have registered and who registered first, both sides. But also I'm sure we have some who are experts. I can tell member for Seme is looking at me. And we shall take note of that. Honorable Odege Boya, member for Nyatike.
It will help us to establish ourselves as a country and manage our own problem as a country. You'll find when you transport a patient from Kenya to India, including air ticket and treatment and even medicine back to our country, it's still cheaper than managing cancer treatment in our own country here. This is an area which we need to look into as a country. Another area which is very important, the laxity in government facilities. We are talking about management of cancer in Kenyatta National Hospital. But I can tell you the queue we have in Kenyatta. A poor man taking himself to be treated in Kenyatta will die before seeing a doctor. There is a lot of laxity. There is no system in Kenyatta where somebody can walk in and get treated and you go back to your home county, treated in Kenyatta National Hospital here, which is a government facility. Leave alone Moi in Eldoret. We need to go deeper. Like now we are talking about our own technical staff trained to manage cancer. We should go deep and see how do we bring people on board who can to help us eradicate mercury usage in our country, which means a good percentage of our people are still exposed to cancerous bacteria, and the trend will still continue. We need some measures to be put in place so that as we talk about treatment or cure, we also concentrate on how do we help our people not to contract cancer. Because the numbers are in the increase, we have to see how we can curtail it. On stigma, we fought HIV/AIDS for the last 30 years because of stigma. People were stigmatized and they were not even ready to declare their status. We see if those two hospitals can benefit our people. As we are talking today, the queue they have because of lack of professionals is killing our people without us realizing. that our people are dying because they're not being seen. You go to Eldoret, you stay there for 1 month, you have not seen the doctor, you are dead and transported back home for burial, and nobody will talk about it. So we need to ensure that we have enough facilities, we have enough professionals and people who can manage cancer. But if not so, then we allow the Indian professionals to come and invest in country here so that they treat our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Honorable Ore Sankok, David.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me begin by saying that I will support this motion and congratulate my sister, Honorable Warukoro, for bringing such a very important motion which touches on the lives of all Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, this is an idea declared a national disaster. It is surely an idea because we need to go out there and create awareness so that our fellow Kenyans are aware that cancer can be treated when in stage 1 or 2. Honorable Speaker, I'm speaking with a lot of pain because I'm still mourning a brother whom we lost because of liver cancer. We are mourning as a disability fraternity, a hero of disability, a man who got his disability through a road accident, and both arms were amputated from the shoulders, and one leg was amputated from the hip. So this guy, the late Honorable, the late Robert Sian, have been surviving on only one limb, one leg, and he graduated with a degree in ICT from the University of Nairobi, and I've been an ICT expert in Kenyan, and we lost him recently because of cancer. And most of us were not even aware that he was suffering from cancer of the liver. He went to hospital and he was just being diagnosed of other diseases, typhoid and others. So what I am saying is that cancer have touched all Kenyans. Every Kenyan is in one way or the other affected by cancer, either directly by losing a family member or by contributing in the so-called fundraising to raise funds for the treatment of these people and for the burial of these victims of cancer. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we really need to come out clearly, and the government should put in measures to make sure that we calm this menace and this pandemic, because it is really, really, really affecting us seriously. Honorable Speaker, at the moment, we are told that 8.2 million people in the world are suffering from cancer, and this figure will triple by the year 2030. What can we do as a country to prevent such increase in suffering of our fellow Kenyans? Honorable Speaker, we should see into ways of preventing cancer from developing in the first place. And as Honorable from Nyatika had said, that we know, we are aware of chemicals that can cause cancer. We are aware of our misuse of chemicals. If you go nowadays to our farms, somebody can spray their own farms of insecticide today, early in the morning, in the evening, those products are in the market to be sold. And these are contributing to cancer cases. We need institutions like NEMA to really tighten their belt and up their game so that we can prevent this disease. Because some of these cancers are actually preventable. So, Honorable Speaker, without taking much time, I really do support this motion, and I ask my sister, Honorable Warugoro, to speed up so that we can have a bill of the same, so that immediately it can be declared a national disaster, because it is actually a national and a worldwide disaster. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Should we now have Honorable Mutua Balasa, member for Kimilili?
Thank you, Bwana Speaker, I want to support this motion and only to urge the implementation committee to ensure that once this motion has been approved and ascended into law by the President, that it must be implemented. Mr. Speaker, I usually ask myself one question. Why is it that a young man found drinking chang'aa is arrested, but an institution that fails to implement a law that had been passed and signed into law by the President is not implemented? Failure to follow the law and the failure to implement the same law, I think, Mr. Speaker, is one and the same. Because this House, we spend a lot of time, a lot of thinking, a lot of research to support the bills, we pass them, but once they are signed into law by the President, institutions do not implement them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, cancer is a very serious disease that is taking away lives of productive Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. And we must support this bill. This is a bill whose time has come, and as you are aware, Mr. Speaker, that an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the same spirit, I've seen very many Kenyans even selling their ancestral lands to go and seeking for medications on cancer in India and other parts of the country, Mr. Speaker. And it's also high time that the government of the day also sacrifices by committing a good chunk of the money in setting up the cancer fund to be able to assist the cancer patients in this country, Mr. Speaker. I would want to see a scenario where very many Kenyans will walk into the health facilities for free cancer screening and a free cancer treatment, Mr. Speaker, because the development agenda of this country is slowed down by the very high rates of death that are emanating from cancer, Mr. Speaker. And I will be willing to see how the implementation committee will move to ensure that this motion, after it has been given a go-ahead by this House and the President, that it should be implemented, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want also to ensure that going forward, once a bill had been approved and ascended into law by the President, we should have a timeline on how this bill is going to be implemented, because I'm sure that you can take 6 months to implement this kind of bills once approved, Mr. Speaker, to avoid the scenario of you are passing bills, but 3 years down the line, nothing has moved, no implementation. So the Committee on Implementation should come up with a timetable, with a schedule of events, schedule of activities that will be followed to ensure that the very many bills that we pass as a House are implemented. For this short remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Dawood Lahim, member for North Imenti. Okay, that member seems to have surrendered his chance. Yes, Honorable Kogo Kipngetich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to appreciate this motion. If what I see in Chesume is anything to go by, then I would say that indeed we need to declare this cancer as a disaster in our country. We've lost many, many people, and for quite some time, if you look at the statistics, it shows that there is an increase in the number of patients and those whom we have lost through this menace. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the other colleague members have mentioned, people have lost lives. Some of these people were very productive in this country. Some of these people were the breadwinners of their families. And unfortunately, as we are talking now, we've had to support even the children of these families who have lost their parents through this disease, cancer. And so it's a high time we refocus on the same. And I want to suggest that we need to understand why the rise in the number of patients suffering from this disease. And therefore, I want to urge the Ministry of Health, probably we need to come up with research centers so that we understand why this is happening at this time. We don't need to look at the statistics that have been mentioned by all these other institutions, but just look at the constituencies where we come from and the counties. And I want to say that we need to refocus more on prevention, on sensitization. We need to mobilize people to appreciate the fact that this is a serious issue. We need to think beyond just the basics, that is just a disease like any other. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to join the rest of the members who have talked in supporting this motion and saying that, yes, indeed, it should be declared a disaster in our country. Indeed, we need to look beyond even just coming up with a fund, but I think it should be free. Screening should be free, the treatment should be free, so that our people can actually be supported as far as this issue is concerned. I stand to support, Mr. Speaker, sir, and to urge the members to support this so that indeed our people, this issue can be controlled and our people can be saved from this problem in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, to my left, Honorable Oruoch Tom, member for Madare.
Madare constituency.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion. This is a motion that is very close to my heart, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say that other than these motions, there are only two other things that should be declared a national disaster alongside the cancer scourge. I think the only two things that would fall in place, in my view, to also befit the standing of a national disaster would be youth unemployment, which I would have contributed to in the debate earlier. And the second or the third one after this is the question of environmental degradation. So as I rise to support this motion, I want to state, Mr. Speaker, that one of the things that we need to deal with when you're talking about cancer is the question about the stigma and the question about early diagnosis. I speak this from experience because my dad has just completed his first session of the last 6 months of cancer, and one of the things that we had to deal with as a family, even after his early diagnosis, was whether or not he would accept to go for treatment. So we need to do a lot of awareness so that people get to realize that a diagnosis that you have cancer is not a death sentence. This can be reversed. It has been reversed, and we want to laud Kenyans like Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, who not only braved the process of going through cancer treatment, but has come out to talk about it. Just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you today, I lost my aunt, Auntie Okinda, just last night, news that I've got this morning. Cancer woman who has braved, very bravely fought the battle of cancer, but lost that battle last night. So as we think about such people and other people like my Auntie Bethan, who are still fighting cancer, but bravely bearing this heart, we want to ask that the best practices that have been adopted in places like Makueni, where we have the Makueni County adopting the universal health care through NHIF. This is something, as we declare this to be a national disaster, something that all the other counties, all the 47 counties should adopt. Makueni County, as I have read, has allocated about 160 million that they put into their NHIF. And even though the NHIF card allows you to access only or to meet only about 40% of the cost of cancer treatment. This can be a new beginning. And so as we deal with this thing, it is important that we also consider that the statistics on these questions are very scary. Cancer, Mr. Speaker, as has been said before, accounts for about 8.8 million cases of deaths from 2015, and cancer contributes a great deal to the question of cancer. And Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion, I ask that we be able to give due attention to awareness and prevention. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support the motion.
I must now give a lady member, looking at my list, top in the list of lady member is Honorable Barire Cecily. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I once again rise to support yet another very, very important motion that has been brought by Honorable Kate Waruguru, and I want to congratulate her for bringing this motion. At the same time, when you were declared HIV positive, you knew that was a death penalty waiting for you. But after that, and due to making it a national disaster, the government scaled up awareness creation efforts and campaigns. They scaled up treatment and care. And today, as we speak, as at 2016, HIV prevalence level had come down from 10.5% to 5.9%. And therefore, we have done this before and we have seen it work. And it's about time we did the same on the issue of cancer. Today, Mr. Speaker, you're safer being diagnosed with HIV than being diagnosed with cancer in this country. Because many people know once you're told you have cancer, because of the efforts, the kind of treatment we receive here, you know you're going to die, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, how do we change that narrative, Mr. Speaker? Today, this motion is the beginning of that effort, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even what is more worrying, listening to the Honorable Kate Waruguru, is that the leading cancer cases are issues of breast cancer, which is out of every 100,000 women, 34 have breast cancer, cervical cancer at 25, and prostate cancer. And this, any doctor will tell you, are cancers that, when detected early, can be treated. And therefore, there's need to first declare cancer a national disaster, then scale up our efforts, number one, on awareness creation so that every woman, every man across the country may understand the need to go for tests. But also it is important to make these tests available at the lowest level of health care facility, which is the dispensary, Mr. Speaker. Today, we are doing HIV tests and screening from a health facility at the dispensary level all the way to national level. Why wouldn't we do the same on cancer, Mr. Speaker, so that every year, every woman can go, number one, for tests on breast cancer and cervical cancer, because it is actually mandatory that every woman in her reproductive age must be able to do that at least once per year. And then we go further and make sure every man gets tested of prostate at least once per year, so that we can detect these diseases early and spend less on their treatment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm hoping that we can even go further. I remember when HIV/AIDS was made a national disaster, and I came to this house in 2003, the then members of Parliament, it is cheaper to treat cancer in India and not here in Kenya. Why is it that every year we have over 10,000 Kenyans in India being treated of cancer, and they cannot get that treatment here at the same amount or even cheaper? I think we need to start looking at that so that we can make this treatment cheaper for all Kenyans. With those many remarks, I beg to support.
Honorable Nyikal, just hold, because I'm deliberately delaying. I'm not giving you the floor now, Honorable Dr. Nyikal. I'm just telling you that, look, I'm delaying giving you an opportunity because you have an expertise in this, in the area of health, and that is acknowledged. So it will be good for you to hear the other members, and then at some point come in. It helps. But in a short while, you get a chance. And Honorable Mwagogo, member for Voi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to support this motion because of the importance of it. One, I think we need to look more on the prevention services than even treatment. Over the years, cancer has been a big problem to this country, and I suggest we should have more centers in the country, like the former provincial headquarters. We should have one center so that our people can be able to be served within their locality, instead of all of them traveling to Nairobi for the same treatment. The other thing is that our lifestyles, which must change. We should talk to our people, engage them, so that we do not have. There are so many things which cause cancer. Like you have brews, the local brews. Some of them are brewed in the morning and they are ready for consumption in the evening. These are dangerous things which can cause cancer very many times. So as much as we like to form the fund, it is important. But again, what do we do to ensure people know their status early to prevent cancer to be seen when it is too late? So for me, I will support this motion. But we must also be able to tell our people early enough they should go for tests. The men should do the same, the women, and everybody in this country, so that they are able to know their status. The treatment overseas is very costly. I'm sure the government can save a lot of money, so that we can also be able to have our own tourism, medical tourism in this country, by having these services made available to the rest of the East African community. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Very well. Honorable Nyikal Wabura, member for Seme, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I must start by congratulating the honorable member for bringing this motion, and I stand to support the motion, Mr. Speaker, because this is something that is really long overdue. The declaration of cancer as a national disaster and setting up a fund are very key issues in this motion. And Mr. Speaker, this is something that we've been aware of from as far back as 2005, when it was actually noted that unless something is done, we are going to have what we call a double burden of disease, meaning we have infectious diseases like TB and malaria, while also getting into a heavy burden of non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. And that has now come to be. Whereas we are saying that cancer is killing more people than malaria and probably TB, if we take two examples, actually, more people get the infectious diseases, although they don't die because it is treatable. Now, with cancer, we now have the burden of infectious diseases which we can treat, and the burden of non-infectious diseases, specifically now cancer, which is harder to treat. And the danger then would be shifting money from the infectious diseases to non-communicable diseases because of the death that we are seeing, and actually risk reversing. But be that as it may, it is still important that we focus on them, but look at more in terms of prevention than actually treatment. Why do I say that, Mr. Speaker? Because treatment is extremely expensive. And one cancer machine would treat, I don't know how many million kids with malaria. And yet we cannot say we don't treat cancer patients because we are treating malaria patients. We must do this, together. And therefore, if we have this national disaster status and actually set up a fund, the question will be, how then do we use that fund? And my view is to actually look at prevention, early screen through processing in factories, and have a lot of cancers, a lot of chemicals in terms of preservatives. We are exposed to a lot of chemicals in factories where we work and so on. So that change in environment is another factor we need to look at. The other reason is increasing life expectancy. People are living longer now than they have been living before, so they have, of course, have a higher chance of getting cancer. Live long enough and you will get cancer. So as the life expectancy increases, we get more cases of cancer. So when we get this fund, what shall we do? And I've said we focus on awareness. Awareness, awareness, and awareness. And why do I say awareness? First of all, we have to say which are the diseases that are giving us the biggest burden now. And basically, there are about 4. 1, cancer of the breast, cancer of the cervix, cancer of the prostate, and gastrointestinal cancer. Now, of these, if we take probably the biggest one, Mr. Speaker, I'll probably ask for 2-3 more minutes. If we take the biggest one, that is cancer of the breast for women and cancer of the cervix and the prostate for men, all these are cancers that you can detect very early and almost stop them from progressing. And with screening, let me take the example of cervical cancer. Cervical cancer even has a vaccine now, the human papillomavirus vaccine, which other countries like Tanzania, they have started giving to teenage girls. So if we go into screening, we can do that. And then the other thing about cancer of the cervix, in fact, it can be screened at a health center by just looking at the cervix and painting it with something very simple as Lugol's iodine. At that point, the treatment is so easy, it can be done at health centers. We are trying to actually set up this by 2008.
Very well, Honorable Nyikao, appreciating your expertise in this area. I'll give you 3 more minutes.
Breast cancer. The most important way of detecting breast cancer in our environment, apart from getting a mammography, is actually breast examination. And if we were to educate all our women on how they can examine their own breast, and with a tongue in the cheek, let me say, the men can also examine the breast of their spouses for medical purposes, not for other purposes. And if we can pick that early, any mass in the breast should actually be taken down and examined. So if you just take those 2 measures, vaccination in children for cervical cancer, early examination for cervical cancer, early examination for breast cancer, you will cut down the number tremendously. And if you go for the men, I'll ask all our colleagues who are here with us, with the insurance we have, at least get those, Mr. Speaker, we will be able to cut down this, I think, by more than 50%. If you are to start that program today, I think in 10 years, we will actually be seeing probably just a quarter of what we are seeing now. I support, we declare as a disaster to give focus, to get funds, and then get a program geared towards awareness, prevention, early detection, and early treatment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. As soon as I get on the screen, I'll let the member registering interest. I'll give her. Honorable Aisha, you have to put, you have to register with your card, you know. It has to reflect on the screen. You have the floor. You have the floor, Honorable Aisha.
That's a problem. Okay.
Yes.
Asante sana Mr. Speaker kwa kunipa nafasi hii ili kuunga mkono mjadala ambao umeletwa na Mheshimiwa Waruguru. Kwanza nataka nimpongeze sana Mheshimiwa kwa fikra ambayo inagusa kila Mkenya katika taifa letu. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ugonjwa wa kansa ni moja kati ya yale magonjwa sugu ambayo yamehangaisha jamii ya taifa letu, na naona kuna umuhimu ama ipo haja ya ugonjwa huu wa kansa kutangazwa kuwa ni janga la kitaifa, na pia vile vile kutengwe ama kuwe na hazina maalum ambayo itashughulikia maradhi haya ambayo ni mazito sana. Wenzangu wametangulia kuongea na pia wataalam katika nyumba hii wametoa sauti zao. Nataka niseme ya kwamba kutokuwa na ufahamu katika jamii ya hasa sana ugonjwa huu unaletwa na nini, unaanza vipi, ni jambo ambalo linachangia pakubwa sana. Wakati ufahamu unapopatikana baada ya mtu kuzuru huduma za afya, huwa tayari imeshachelewa. Na tukiangalia pia mashirika, hasa sana shirika la afya duniani, limetoa takwimu ambazo tukiziangalia ni jambo ambalo linatutia hofu ya kwamba kuna ugonjwa huu kuweza kujulikana kwa haraka inakuwa ni vigumu. Ni wakati mtu akienda akitembelea huduma za afya anapatikana tayari ugonjwa umeshafika kiasi cha 70% mpaka 80%. Kwa hivyo kudhibitiwa inakuwa ni kazi ngumu, na yote haya yanafanywa na kutokuwa na ufahamu, Mr. Speaker. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka niseme ya kwamba kuna taasisi ambazo tayari zimeshabuniwa. Mr. Speaker, nitaizungumza kwa lugha ya Kimombo kwa sababu siwezi kuitafsiri kwa lugha ya Kiswahili. Kuna Cancer Prevention and Control Act 2012, Mr. Speaker, ambayo inaangalia masuala ya kuzuia, kudhibiti na matibabu katika taifa letu la Kenya. Lakini utaona ya kwamba taasisi hizi, Mr. Speaker, ni taasisi ambazo zimepewa kisogo na serikali. Hazipewi kipaumbele. Hazina uhifadhi ama ufadhili wa kutosha kuweza kulishughulikia swala hili la kukinga, kudhibiti na hata kutibu ugonjwa huu wa kansa, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Kwa hivyo kile ambacho tunakizungumzia hapa ni kwamba ukiangalia katika act hii section 4 and section 20, nataka niseme ya kwamba ni vyema ikiwa sisi kama wabunge ambalo swala hili linatuathiri moja kwa moja. Maanake nasema hivyo linatuathiri kivipi sisi kama wabunge katika taifa hili? Tumehusika katika michango, tumehusika katika jamii kuchanga fedha za kumsaidia mgonjwa katika maeneo yote kwa njia moja ama nyingine ili mgonjwa yule apate matibabu. Na ukiangalia matibabu yenyewe ama majibu yenyewe yanayokuja baadaye ni very negative. Kiswahili hapo kidogo. Hatuleti majibu ambayo ni very negative. Yaani mara vifo vinatokea wakati tumeshaeka pesa zetu kiasi ili mgonjwa ule apate matibabu. Ndio maana nataka nimpongeze sana Mheshimiwa Waruguru ya kwamba kuna umuhimu wa kuwa na hazina. Ili hazina ile ishuke mashinani, iweze kutuhamasisha na kuhamasisha jamii, na hatimaye watu wanapojulikana mapema. Manake shirika la afya duniani linatuambia ugonjwa huu ukipata kujulikana mapema basi tunaweza kudhibiti na kuutibu. Kwa hivyo nafikiri kujulikana ama kupatikana kwa ufahamu mapema ni jambo la muhimu, Mr. Speaker. Naunga mkono na pia vile vile taasisi zilizoko. Ukiangalia Kenya Cancer Registry ni taasisi moja ambayo inatupea sisi data ambayo inatusaidia na katika mipangilio ya kuweza kuhakikisha ya kwamba hifadhi taasisi ile tunazitengea mgao wa kutosha ili ikaweze kuhakikisha ya kwamba
Honorable Aisha Jumwa, you know, you are correct. You are actually on the...
Of that common person who operates from the village. We need to implore upon the Ministry of Health to ensure that the coverage of screening and surveillance on this is addressed as early as possible. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, it is in book that cancer is also caused by lifestyle and foodstuffs that we take. Has the ministry come up with a policy to address the issue of nutritionists? We need nutritionists to help us in dietary changes. We need, as a nation, to look at how many nutritionists we have, their distribution and coverage within the nation, so that we are told and we teach our people and our children on best dietary behavior. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we need also to look at the health policies that governs cancer treatment and management. Before we declare cancer, which we are going to do as a house, but which policies do we have in place within the Ministry of Health that are going to support this declaration? Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I support the motion. Thank you.
Very well. Should we now have Honorable Martin Owino, member for Diwa?
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member who brought this motion. Mr. Speaker, I'm very passionate about this motion because I've lost so many people in my constituency. Mr. Speaker, non-cutaneous malignancies can be well treated if found on time. So I want to suggest that we don't need to do more duplications. We have community strategy, which is very, very elaborate. And now, Mr. Speaker, we are moving from hospitals to household hospitals. We did very well with malaria, and we are doing much, much better because malaria we can now diagnose and treat at home. The same way, Mr. Speaker, there is what we call the 3D syndrome, how decisions are made quickly and how you can get somebody to hospital and how that person can be attended quickly. These 3Ds are the real cause of problem in our disease management. I want to suggest that as we declare this disease a disaster in our nation, let us also claim for funding, as my Honorable MP behind me have said, we need to put more funding into the prevention part of it. And I want to suggest that that prevention has to start with the household so that decisions can be made, support can be done at the household level. Then we move to tier 2, which is dispensary, for screening. People have to be supported to agree to go for screening. Even if we avail those and they are not supported from the household unit, they will still shy away because of fear and because they are unaware as well of the factors that prevail. But it is also important to know that we have elaborate private sectors which should partner with the government to ensure that cancer is reduced. Mr. Speaker, it is not an exaggeration. In 2005, we had 18,000 deaths in this country, and now it has shot to 28,000. That is an alarming trend, and children are most affected by leukemia. So I'm suggesting that as we declare this, let's put more fund in education, can be group education, and also one-on-one, plus counseling, so many people can come out to be tested. I'm also happy to hear that members of the parliament can champion this. That is very welcome. When things are declared as a national disaster, things move. I was involved in lobbying President Moi to declare AIDS when I was in NASCOP, and it did make a difference. So let's also move forward to do this. Research is a very important part of these things. There's a lot of environmental issues, nutritional issues, as well as the whole lifestyle. We can not just wait to treat. Yes, it is good to have centers of excellence, but prevention and screening is the major part for this intervention. So I want to finish by saying that like any other policy or bills passed in this House, let us improve our implementation. We can talk here, we can declare, and we can do everything, but if implementation is not done in the right way and funds channeled in for the right cause, then we'll still have ourselves talking about this without end. So in closing, I want to say education, screening, diagnosis, and treatment are best for the interventions for this disease. Let it be noted, Mr. Speaker, that I support this motion.
Honorable Albele Malimo, member for Isamis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I also rise to support this motion.
Is that Mike?
Pardon? Tell me. It's okay? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I also arise to support this motion that states declaration of cancer as a national disaster. Mr. Speaker, cases of cancer in this country is actually skyrocketing in Kenya today, and more importantly, in my constituency where I come from, actually Marsabit County. Mr. Speaker, sometimes back, the KTN actually aired a program where they named it the Desert of Death. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people in my constituency where I come from, actually, many of them happen to die as a result of cancer cases. Actually, many children die, a lot of adult people. Until today, cases of cancer is being reported, and nothing is done, nothing much is done. Mr. Speaker, sometimes back in the year 1995 to 1998, there was a petroleum company which was doing oil exploration, oil and gas exploration in my constituency, and it is believed that that could be the company which has deposited toxic materials underground. And it could be that that is actually the cause of cancer in my constituency. Mr. Speaker, I will find it prudent if KEMRI is put to task to go and investigate, actually test the soil, test the water, and even the vegetation to ensure that, to find out whether that is the cause of cancer to my people or not. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people have died of cancer, and unfortunately, nothing has been done to them in terms of compensation. The fact that this bill is talking about compensating those people, creating actually fund to compensate those people, it will also be prudent if we create a database to capture each and every person who has died of cancer and how many are living with cancer. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine those people in the villages are very vulnerable, and that they cannot even be able to afford for their medication. The fact that the cancer is becoming very expensive, all kinds of ailments, if you go to hospital, people cannot be able to afford. It would have been better if those people, if we create this fund, the fund which is going to be created, so that we can be able to benefit those people. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you so much.
Honorable Mutemi, member for Mwingi Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion by Honorable Waruguru on cancer. Mr. Speaker, cancer amounts to more deaths in Kenya than HIV/AIDS at the moment. And we stand at 1 in every 6 deaths are out of cancer. In the world, cancer is the second largest killer worldwide. This house, Mr. Speaker, is the recent casualty of a member who lost his life due to cancer. And therefore, we have a first-hand experience in this 12th Parliament. And therefore, cancer does not choose. Mr. Speaker, 70% of the cancer cases happen in the low and middle income countries where Kenya lies. And therefore, we are mostly affected by this disease. It is very expensive to treat and therefore unaffordable by a majority of the Kenyans because we are poor. For example, the cost of treating cancer, one session, is between 35,000 shillings to $500,000 based on the hospital you are in. And you need about 30 continuous sessions to be treated. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, even ourselves, unless you have a medical cover, it is very, very difficult to afford. And therefore, most people end up dying because of the disease. Down in the villages, we conduct a lot of rabies, fundraisings, and we support a lot of people who are suffering from this disease. And as members of parliament, we are mostly affected by those who are suffering from the diseases. Mr. Speaker, unlike HIV, cancer is treatable, yet it still remains the main killer. It still remains the main killer, and it can be treated if it is detected early. And therefore, this motion has come at the right time and should be adopted and fast-tracked so that Kenyans can get medical care. Mr. Speaker, in Kenya, we have 40,000 cases every year, and 27,000 Kenyans die every year. While in the world, 14 million cases happen every year, and 9 million die. Mr. Speaker, it is sad because most of those affected are the working class. Over 60% are those below 70 years of age. And therefore, we are losing a lot of people who can build this economy. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion so that Kenyans can get access to treatment. And I want to propose that we create awareness, free diagnosis in the country, and also reduce management cost of the disease so that Kenyans can access treatment of cancer. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
Before I get to my right, let me give Osotsi, Honorable Osotsi Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this very, very important motion. Mr. Speaker, cancer is a big challenge, not only to this country, but globally. As my colleague has said, cancer is one of the leading killers globally. In fact, cancer is a leading killer if you compare to HIV, to...
Order, Honorable Member. What is it, Honorable Bai? You seem to have put an intervention and quickly removed it. I guess it was a mistake. What you need to be on record. What are you saying, Honorable Bai? Could you give him the mic? Yes. What is out of order, Honorable Bai?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, it was, my intentions were not to come on a point of order, but I was trying to switch on the system for me to address myself to this matter, Mr. Speaker. Sorry.
Very well. Use the right button.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Bai. Yes, Honorable Tots, you now have the...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I will say, cancer kills more people than TB, HIV, and malaria combined. And this is a big challenge to us as leaders in this country and as policy and lawmakers. Mr. Speaker, one of the challenges we are having in this country is that we come up with very good laws, very good policies, but we are unable to implement them. Mr. Speaker, as we are talking now, we have a legislation in place to manage issues to do with cancer. The National Cancer Control and Prevention Act. A lot of issues contained in this law have not been implemented. This is one issue that Parliament must address, that very good things that we have in our laws, in our policies, have not been implemented, and hence Kenyans continue suffering. The law, the National Cancer Control and Prevention Act, proposes the creation of the National Cancer Institute. Mr. Speaker, as we are speaking now, this institute, no one knows about it. This institute is not properly resourced, and hence it cannot deal with challenges that we are facing as a country in terms of cancer. So one of the things we need to do, and I'm speaking as the vice chairperson of implementation committee, is to insist that those who are mandated within government to implement some of these things are able to implement. The other day, we called in the CS for industrialization to come and explain to us why issues like steel metal Act has not been implemented. And this is a problem across government. Many of the laws, many of the motions that we pass here are not implemented. If whatever is contained in this act, and most importantly, the National Cancer Control Strategy, 2012-2017, it is very ambitious. It is talking about prevention, it's talking about all the strategies to stop cancer. The question is, why has it not been implemented? These are serious questions that we should be asking ourselves as parliamentarians, because without proper implementation mechanism, many of the good things that we are talking about will not be implemented. The World Bank feasibility study, Mr. Speaker, it indicates that for you to have a working and functional cancer unit, you need between 1.5 billion to 2 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, it is time this country needs to do cost-benefit analysis. Why would we spend 40 billion shillings on equipment lease when we can spend 1.5 billion shillings to set up a cancer unit in every county? So we need to review our priorities as a country. The leasing of equipment, sometimes those equipments are not used. Money is wasted every year by the counties. Can we instead use that money to set up a properly functional and equipped cancer center in every constituency or in every county? And we'll be able to deal with many challenges we are having. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, prevention is key. They say up to 30% of cases which are discovered, they are able to be handled if they are discovered in time. But in this country, there is no focus on prevention. The focus is on cure. I think it's important the Ministry of Health to put in place mechanisms
Honorable Sherure, member for Nakuru.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kunipatia nafasi pia mimi nichangie mswada huu ambaye inaongea mambo ya kansa. Bwana Spika, kwa kusema kweli tunapoongea leo kuhusu mambo ya kansa ni ugonjwa moja ambaye imetatiza wananchi wote. Hatusemi hii ni ugonjwa ambaye pengine inaeleweka kwa constituency nyingine haieleweki. Tunaelewa kwamba wananchi, kina mama na wazee wameumia sana juu ya mambo ya ugonjwa ya kansa. Na kwanza ningependa kuchukua nafasi kupongeza bunge ambaye amelete mswada huu ndani ya bunge hii, tujadiliane, tukubaliane kama wajumbe kwamba kama hii ni shida ambaye inatatiza wananchi wote katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, inafaa kweli kutengewa pesa. Bwana Spika, ukijaribu kuangalia mambo ya hii ugonjwa, ni ugonjwa moja ambaye inahitaji elimu, inahitaji kufanya civic education ama kuelimisha wananchi pale nyumbani mambo ya hii ugonjwa, sababu ni ugonjwa moja ambaye ikipatikana wakati mzuri ni ugonjwa ambaye inaweza kutibika ama inaweza tibiwa na mtu anaweza pona. Kwa hivyo shida kubwa ni kwamba ni ugonjwa ambaye inapata watu pale nyumbani, na sisemi rural peke yake, hata urban. Ni ugonjwa ambaye ikipatikana kwa wakati mzuri inaweza tibika. Naye ni ugonjwa ambaye kama haitapatikana kwa wakati mzuri inatatiza wananchi sana. Na ninajua watu wengi wameuza mali yao, watu wengi wamepata shida mingi sana kwa mambo ya kansa. Tunapoongea saa hii kuna watu ambaye wamelala hospitali, kuna watu ambaye wako nyumbani, wameshindwa hata na matibabu. Kwa hivyo ni vyema serikali ikichukulia ama ikitilia maanani kutenga pesa ambaye inahusu mambo ya ugonjwa ya kansa. Kwanza ni kwa mambo ya civic education, kuelimisha watu juu ya hii ugonjwa, na ya pili kuhakikisha kupeleka huduma karibu na nyumbani, mahospitali ambaye ziko nyumbani, kupeleka huduma pale ili wananchi watakuwa wakichukua hatamu yao ama wakati wao kwenda kujipima. Kina mama wajipime, wazee wajipime, kila mtu ajipime ndio ujulikane kama uko na ugonjwa wa kansa ama hapana, na kama kunayo ipatikane kwa wakati mzuri, wakati ambaye watu wanaweza pata matibabu na wapone. Kwa hivyo ninaunga hii mswada sana Mr. Speaker ama Bwana Speaker, ninaunga sana mheshimiwa ambaye amelete mswada huu mbele ya hii bunge, na nina hakika kwamba wabunge wote watapitisha hii mswada na itafuatiliwa ihakikishe kwamba kuna pesa ama serikali imewatengea pesa. Ni ya maana sana na tutafurahi sisi wote. Na itakuwa ni jukumu yetu kama viongozi pia kuelimisha wananchi na kutumia njia yoyote kwamba watu wamepata elimu kuhusu hii ugonjwa na wameenda kwa wakati mzuri kujipima ili wapate matibabu kwa wakati mzuri. Kwa hayo yote machache, Bwana Spika, nasema asante sana na ninaunga mkono. Asante.
Honorable Dawood Rahim, member for North Imenti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the outset, I want to join my colleagues in supporting this motion by Mheshimiwa Catherine. And I say it's a good motion in the sense that it brings to the fore what ails our country. Cancer is something which we can talk about the whole day and not get a solution really, because a lot of people get cancer. They've got people who have got cancer in the family, and to my male colleagues I would suggest they go for prostate screening, not just the PSA, because it's one of the biggest killers of men. Because the other day I was reading in the Times newspaper of England that it's the biggest killer even in England. And Mr. Speaker, when we talk about cancer, it's not just one individual. We are talking about families who have been affected by it. And Mr. Speaker, we need something to assist us get this funding and it to be declared a national disaster, because as we stand today, Meru County is the leading supplier, or it's the people in Meru County are #1 in Kenya with cancer cases at Kenyatta National Hospital trying to be treated. Mr. Speaker, we do not need to bury our heads in the sand when our people are dying, and then we just wait for the government itself. We need even ourselves, we need even the private sector to establish hospices all over the country. Mr. Speaker, we had the hospice which was supported by Lady Diana Fund, which a couple of years back pulled back funding. And now, as we are talking, there is no funding for hospices which give palliative care, and we need to look at other places where we can get funding for those hospices, because I myself am a patron of the Meru Hospice, and I know how they've gone through trouble getting medicines for people who are suffering. And Mr. Speaker, I wish one day we could all go to where the cancer patients go to hospices, and you would see the sorry state they are in because of lack of medicines. And we cannot probably help them much, but we just assist in the pain reduction by giving them medicines. But Mr. Speaker, I think it's imperative that as a country, we have a proper policy on how we are going to be treating our cancer patients, because it being a major killer, and it takes away even productive people in the society. Like my other colleagues have said, that under 70s, yes, there are people who have gone to cancer even in the 20s and 30s, because I remember there was a Rambe we did for one person in my constituency, and he did not even last a year, and he was only 30 years old. He's left a family, but we need more of those. We do not just need one. We need many, many all over the country so that we can establish cancer hospitals. We can treat cancer much, much earlier so that we do not fall prey to it. Mr. Speaker, this motion is very good, and I hope the mover of the motion will follow the implementation committee to implement it, because the problem with us, in the last parliament, we passed many motions which never come to fruition. They just lie there in the implementation committee and nothing happens to it. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I would want to congratulate the mover and ask her to move forward to make it into a bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, I can tell we have quite a number of members who have an interest. And there's a bit of time. We have 15 minutes, actually. If the members are persuaded, this is not binding to them. If the members who get a chance are persuaded to take a bit shorter time so that their colleagues get the remaining minutes, it will be okay. But this is not binding on them. They have a maximum of 5 minutes. To my left, Honorable Mwabire Gubao, member for Ganze.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion. The motion, Mr. Speaker, has come at the right time, basing on looking at the issues in the country. We have been having a number of issues, particularly if you look at the number of deaths, the number of patients that we have across the country is very big. But, Mr. Speaker, we are having another challenge which I think the country must put into consideration, looking at the number of qualified doctors who can undertake the issues of cancer in this country are very minimal. So we need also to make sure that we increase the number. We set aside some funds to make sure that more specialized doctors are trained so that they can undertake these issues. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, based on what you have told us to observe time so that others can also get an opportunity, I stand to demonstrate my support.
Yes, I can tell the honorable member was well persuaded or moved by my persuasion. To my right, Honorable Lesuda Naisura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I want to thank you for this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion and also congratulate the honorable member from Laikipia County for bringing it before this House. I will also take into consideration your directive and be very brief since most of my colleagues have contributed to this motion. Mr. Speaker, we all know that cancer, if you're not infected, if you do not have it, then you are affected. Your family member, your friend, your colleague, somebody around you is affected by this disease, Mr. Speaker. It is also a disease that we know that not only leaves a lot of pain, it also impoverishes. It leaves families very poor. They use all the resources that they have to make sure that they treat their patient or their family member, but ultimately, by the time they lose that family member, Mr. Speaker, then they have been left with almost nothing. Mr. Speaker, that is why it is important as a country. We realize that this is a pandemic that is with us, and we must put in place measures to make sure that we cushion the people of Kenya from the adverse effects of this disease, Mr. Speaker. I just want to talk about one issue, and it is the issue about universal health coverage, Mr. Speaker. Most of our constituents, most of our county members, Mr. Speaker, are either not aware of NHIF, others are aware, but they are not able to pay. Others are aware they have part of the money and cannot pay, Mr. Speaker. I think as a government, even as we focus on universal health care and universal health coverage, Mr. Speaker, we should also start with those who are having long-term illnesses, Mr. Speaker, so that we can be able to ensure that we take off the burden from the families, Mr. Speaker. The second other thing is to ensure that our hospitals are not only equipped. We know that most counties, through the partnership of the national government, ensured that they got the machines of screening, of even treatment to our counties, Mr. Speaker, but we lack expertise. Our doctors are so few who can do chemotherapy, radiotherapy, Mr. Speaker, and that is why hospitals like Kenyatta Hospital are overwhelmed. It is important that our county governments, through and even national government, ensure that we have specialists at the county level who can operate these equipment to ensure that we avoid a lot of challenges in terms of traveling all the way to referral hospitals, and most importantly, Kenyatta National Hospital to access this treatment, Mr. Speaker. And just to also add on the issue of treatment, it is important that we start talking to our people on issues of even prevention. It is so interesting that nowadays it's no longer even, you might find a family which in their lineage, they have never had cancer. It also does not choose. We have very young babies, a child of a few months, and you find that that baby is infected. It must be that probably what we are eating, what we are being exposed, environmental problems, Mr. Speaker, and so we must put in some effort in terms of research to ensure that we know and we share this information with the members of public so that it can be helped. These people can be helped on issues of prevention. To conclude, so that I give my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, the other issue is to see that we have hospices where we can dignify those who are you know, almost, so that to relieve the pain from the patients and also to ensure that we give them enough care even towards their last days, Mr. Speaker, across the county. So thank you very much, and we do hope that it will not just be about talking about it, declaring it, but ensuring that we implement and put interventions in place to ensure that we deal with this menace. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Mose John, member for Kitutu Masaba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me a chance to also address this very important matter of national importance. Mr. Speaker, sir, the cancer has become a real problem in this country. And as I rise to support this motion on the following grounds. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, sir, cancer has actually ravaged and has killed very many of our most critical or crucial persons that normally are very important for this nation. And as I rise to support, I want to say that if you see the number of people that are dying on a daily basis, if you see the kind of harambes that members of parliament are on a daily basis raising for cancer patients to be taken to India, to be taken to these other developed democracies, is very, very, very high. And it is therefore important, Mr. Speaker, sir, that as I supported this very crucial motion, we should be in a position as a country to use even the resources that we are using outside this country to establish these cancer centers in every county. If I speak for my county, Nyamira County, where I come from, and even the level 5 that we have, you will be shocked, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there are so many of the cancer patients who are dying there on a daily basis. And therefore, this motion has come at the most critical time that we, all of us, and as a country, we need to put the resources that we have. This country has enormous resources. We have resources that are actually wasted on a daily basis. If these resources, Mr. Speaker, sir, are actually addressed and are given for the establishment of the cancer centers, as a country, we would have done a lot for our people. Therefore, as I support, it is my prayer that all the resources, all the people that are concerned, particularly the Ministry of Health, should have special resources addressed, so special resources are allocated, so that at the end of the day, we are able to assist our people. I remember, Mr. Speaker, sir, the other day, I was raising funds for a cancer patient going to India, and the amount of money that was required was about 3 million. And we did a lot to be able to raise money to take that patient. And the question is, how many of these cancer patients are suffering, are languishing in the village, and they are not even able to attract the attention of even many of the members of parliament. Therefore, establishment of cancer centers in our respective counties, Mr. Speaker, sir, will actually help a lot to alleviate the suffering that our people are going through. I would therefore support this motion, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the rider that we should be able to, all of us as a country, address this endemic problem that is rising. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Before I get to my left, should we have Honorable Mugambi Gishuki?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support. Mr. Speaker, sir, cancer is a monster in this country. Actually, if we go by the statistics, Mr. Speaker, sir, about over 1,000 Kenyans are sliding into poverty because of cancer. Every time there's one case of cancer, it impoverishes a whole family, a whole village, Mr. Speaker, sir. And this motion is very timely. It's very timely because, Mr. Speaker, sir, if we don't address it, even our goals of improving the welfare and the lifestyles of our Kenyans will not achieve it. Mr. Speaker, sir, the biggest challenge is the treatment. You will find that even when cancer is detected early, our treatment process is killing more people. We do not have enough personnel to administer even the more common treatment of chemotherapy. Many patients are dying in the process. And that is why those who are able have chosen to always fly out of the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the amount of foreign exchange, we are losing, taking patients out of this country. It's so high. And therefore, we need interventions so that we train our manpower. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the other day I was out of this country for treatment. And when you speak to some countries out there, like in India, they are very ready to partner with us and help us with skills in some of these difficult areas. And therefore, it's very important, even when we see our government going out there, going to Cuba and looking for specialists. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it's very painful when we see our very own medics opposing some of these interventions, like bringing specialists who can work with them to build capacity in this country, because for sure we lack in capacity. Mr. Speaker, sir, also when you look at the cost of drugs, so that some of these companies that have also seen a great opportunity to make money, at least understand that they're not making money. They are killing and they are murdering our patients. Mr. Speaker, sir, we need government intervention so that our people at least have hope. Our people can believe that there's future. And we are sure that with proper interventions, this monster can be lessened. I beg to support, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well, I think our time is really, on my left I was to give Honorable Kevin Wanyonyi before giving to Honorable Cherono, but our time seems to, maybe Honorable Wanyonyi, the way he looks, he can just speak very briefly to this. I have that impression.
Maybe I'm mistaken, Mr. Speaker. I want to contribute to this because I think I'm one of the victims in the village as a member of parliament. Mr. Speaker, I want the mover of this motion to alter this, that we do not want to urge the government. This House resolves, because I think we have so many of these cases, and I think other than say you're going to beg the government do that, please, we should amend this, the mover, to say urge the government to declare this as a national disaster and establish cancer fund. Mr. Speaker, I think it's time for us, because we are now in a very critical stage. Come to think of it, cancer is just one of the major killers, and you never know. I've had problems with my neighbors, the constituency. I've gone to the extent of even borrowing money to assist this country, and of course the distant referral centers are one of the major, the ticket to India and have somebody go there. Really, I think we should actually urge the government, resolve that the government sets up the fund for this particular monster. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Health, should have a policy which actually going to assist the Kenyans in general to be able to have a civic education, Mr. Speaker, so that people can be able to know, at least people can learn, for example, the internship, the interns, students at the universities and the colleges, during that time, they should be going around the country to be able to tell, to educate our Kenyans that this is a problem, and therefore early detection for cancer is very important. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think the ministry should also come up very clear, because cancer now is a disaster, and there's nothing you can do about it. And therefore, I'm asking that the ministry comes up very quickly with a policy.
Very well, Honourable Member, I think your point is made. Now, I'm afraid that in the prevailing decision of the House is that such a motion would take maximum of 2 hours. And that is coming to an end. The mover has a maximum of 5 minutes. She has a discretion to choose whether to donate part of that 5 minutes to any other person, but she has 5 minutes starting now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm torn between how I donate my minutes, but Mr. Speaker, I just would wish you, I have the member for Kajiado here, Women Rep Baringo, and one member from that, 1 minute, and then you give me 2 minutes so that we get a nice bite for closing this motion. We need to speak like Kenyans feel.
Yes, give him the minute, 1 minute.
Thank you for donating this 1 minute. I want to contribute to this very important motion and say cancer has become an issue in our country. It's an emerging issue and a real issue that the government should address, and we see how we can alleviate our people. Cancer patients are dying a very painful death. We need to give them palliative care so that they can die honorably. Mr. Speaker, there is a cost of transportation to India. Many people are going to India to seek cancer treatment, and it is happening, they can be treated. So I think we should alleviate them, we should come up as a country and see how we might mitigate. Lastly, Speaker, I think it's because of the way our Kenyans have been exposed to various issues, therefore we should come up and alleviate them because it is not their own cause that they have the cancer cells. Thank you.
Yes, who is in? Yeah? Honorable? Yeah. Honorable Cherono. Oh, I think I hear both of them. Okay, very well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I really want to add my voice about this issue of cancer. I want to say that I'm so passionate about this motion because last weekend I buried some 2 people who succumbed to cancer. And while doing so, we had 4 bodies lying at MTRH, Eldoret, and I want to say that this motion has come at the right time because cancer is a disease which is very, very expensive to manage. And I want to say that there is no known cure for cancer because anytime you find somebody sick, they are taken to hospital, they are done radiation.
Well, the donated 1 minute is up. It looks a very short time. Honorable Joyce.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I know the time is far much gone. I must also congratulate the mover of this motion, Madam Gate, for bringing this wonderful motion. I only want to say that, Honorable Speaker, that in Bomet, particularly, Honorable Speaker, we have this throat cancer, which is caused by selenium diet, the selenium soil, Honorable Speaker, which I want to request, Honorable Kate, that as we also support the motion, Honorable Speaker, let's also use the statistics that has been collected and even be in a position to ask the government to even give the selenium diet supplements so that at least where the areas which are affected by this soil selenium issue, the people who are coming from that areas can get that supplements, Honorable Speaker. The issues of greenhouses, the issues of pesticides, which have also been
very well. The mover, I'm afraid you have only 2 minutes, and I'm afraid you may not donate the 2 minutes. You need to take the 2 minutes to reply.
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I speak very fast. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this motion. I think the message is very clear. Kenyans are watching, and Kenyans, they're looking up on us. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, I want to borrow the words of one member who said we need to resolve. Mr. Speaker, if that has a financial implication or a budget implication, I feel it's not a cost that is too expensive for us to save the lives of Kenyans. I think the message is clear. Kenyans are dying. We are a sick nation. If you're not infected with cancer, you are affected by cancer. It is upon us to establish a cancer fund. I must say I'm so disappointed because when I looked at the budget policy statement, I did not find an allocation of money which was set aside to fight cancer. And I think it is very embarrassing because Kenyans are suffering. Number two, I urge the county governments, Mr. Speaker, to allow themselves to set aside a fund that is going to fight cancer for matters to do with screening, sensitization, and they allow the national government to deal with matters to do with doctors and oncologists. And I must say to the president that the cost of training one oncologist, it stands at 8 million. And very few Kenyans who can afford that. We need more doctors. And before we talk of Cuba doctors, we have local doctors who can be encouraged to go to school, and they take up the challenge, Mr. Speaker. I must say also that I'm very grateful, one, to Honorable Sestre Barire, Dr. Kenyo Wiza, Kenyan doctor at Moore Hospital in California, Dr. Kebashio from Kenyatta National Hospital, Dr. Miriam from Aga Khan Hospital, and entirely the health committee and all Kenyans for supporting me. And I want to declare my commitment to you and to remind Kenyans that I am your ambassador for cancer, and members have supported me. They will continue supporting us so that we bring cancer to an end. Cancer must end. No more Harambes. NHIF card must protect Kenyans. And I reply.
Very well. Honorable members, we shall ped putting the question on that motion to another time. Honorable members, the time being 5 minutes after 1 p.m., this House starts adjourned till today, Wednesday, 11th April 2018 at 2:30 p.m.